Hi, this is Eddie Deason. You're listening to Breaking the Fourth Wall. I was Mandark in Dexter's Laboratory. Ha 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 ha.
You are listening to Breaking the Fourth Wall on Realm of the Mist Entertainment.
And this tells me it's recording.
Yep, telling me you're recording.
There we go. Hey, what's up, guys? This is Christopher Stolle. Welcome to another episode of Breaking the Fourth Wall. Today, I'm sitting down with somebody who is pretty much similar to myself. Is a musician, is an actor, is a ghost hunter, a paranormal investigator. Guy's basically a jack of all trades. So this is going to be exciting to sit down and discuss some of his interests and how he got into things. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jean-Pierre Giovanni?
Gianoli.
Gianoli. Sorry, Gianoli. I told you I was going to screw it up.
It's all right. It happens. I'm used to it. It's been that way pretty much my whole life.
So how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well, thanks. Doing the best as I can to keep sane during the quarantine, keeping productive and creative. So I'm doing well.
I imagine quarantine's kind of had a damper on some of the things that you choose to do, but what about like obviously the music writing, you could do that anywhere, right?
Yeah.
I know that from being a songwriter myself. I've written lyrics in a bathroom.
Yeah,
on
definitely.
Work. So I mean, you do it anywhere, but like the ghost hunting and stuff like that, has it put a hinder on those types of activities as well?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of limitations right now with a lot of what I do. I mean, I was having tons of acting jobs before the quarantine, and then all of a sudden, I'm just getting a lot of remote auditions, things that you can record self-tape, or I do voiceover work too, so I can record and then send it. But definitely limiting a lot of live performing, stand-up comedy. I do comedy as well. I perform as a musical artist, so obviously shows and stuff like that have all been kind of taken away from us. So it's definitely limited quite a bit. And paranormal investigating too, obviously, traveling and going out and being in groups, something you want to be careful of right now. So it's definitely limiting. But thankfully, I think when you're creative, and I think you understand this, you find ways to adapt as a creative, to keep yourself kind of sane and calm and like, okay, well, I can write music, I can do this, I can do that. So you definitely can find things to do if you're a creative person, I think.
Well, we got to start at the beginning, and I'm not a person that usually likes to do things in the generic. You turn on any interview show and you got it. But I mean, just on the fact that you have your fingers in so many different cookie jars.
Yeah.
Again, singer songwriter or rapper songwriter.
I sing too.
Singer songwriter. I'll throw that in there.
Yeah.
Actor, stand-up comedian, paranormal investigator. Are you a video game designer? Maybe got a hand in gynecology? Like, how did you get involved in so many different things? And what prompted you to even want to pursue so many different avenues?
Yeah, I think it's complex, and it's something I learned more recently, actually. So I guess I'll kind of start recently and kind of go backwards. So,
Okay.
just the end of last year, I actually came to terms with that I was severely abused by my family growing up, and it was something so normalized that I didn't really realize it. Even when I was dating my wife, and she's like, "You're being abused," I'm like, "Oh, that's just my family. They're like that. How they say things or whatever."
Right.
So realizing that kind of makes me a little more secure in how I got into so many things. I think really as a coping mechanism for the abuse, all the things I chose to do either allowed me to be away from the abuse or escape, mentally escape into my creativity. Whether it was, I know I used a lot of sarcasm growing up with my abuser and it worked, because I was so clever with my retorts that like my abuser would be like, "You little son of a, you really got me with that one." And I was like, "Oh, okay," like I stopped one of the attacks or whatever.
Right.
So it started really young. I think just growing up with music, watching, my family would let me stay up late and watch Johnny Carson and Saturday Night Live and I used to impersonate Groucho Marx when I was like a really little kid, and Michael Jackson I used to imitate in all his dance moves when I was really little. So like as a kid, I think I was just something with music, something with humor, like really just drew me in. And I always was a performer, but because I was very sheltered and kind of isolated from most of society because of the abuse, that like I didn't want the attention or like the attention. But when I started performing when I was in school, really in junior high, is when I joined choir and drama, and I performed, and I felt always just kind of alive and comfortable when I was on stage performing. Now when I got off stage, I was still shy. Like people were like, "Oh, you're so good," and like I'd turn red and like kind of, I don't like the attention. But yeah, I think that's where it started, was just being a fan at first and just loving the passion I saw in artists, the cleverness of a comedian. And that really sparked it, because when my parents would tell me stories of being really little and imitating all these people, I was like, well, then, yeah, I've always kind of been doing it since I was really little. I've always imitated that kind of stuff. And then I think as I grew up and I stopped being as shy and I noticed I enjoyed being on stage, I really just gravitated towards it even more. Like, this is what I want to do. I really love it. When I get on a stage, and even when I started doing stand-up comedy when I was 18, like right out of high school, when I started going to college. And I was very isolated and sheltered. So my humor, I don't know if it necessarily connected with everybody at the beginning, but bookers always told me I seemed so comfortable on stage for my age. Everybody thought I was older. I mean, I was 18 and they were asking what drinks I wanted. They didn't question my age or ask me for ID. They were like, "What do you want?" "Sure, Red Bull and vodka, like my buddy over here." Like,
Right.
whatever. Nobody questioned it. And it was because just the way I carried myself. And part of it, I think, because the abuse I went through made me so I needed to be on top of things, or else there was punishments for not being on top of things. And I think that translated to everything I did, is I just wanted to be on top of it. So I just like really, I go all in when I go into something. Like I research the history of comedy, where it started, where it is, where it's going. Same thing with music as a rap artist. I was really exposed to it around junior high, around the time I started actually performing too. And there was something that I connected to in their words. I grew up in Long Beach, California, where I was born. And there's definitely a lot of gang violence where I was at growing up. We didn't live in the best neighborhoods. So I connected with rap music because they rapped about what I saw pretty much on the street every day. So it was like, oh, I get what they're saying. Like, and I connected with it. And because of that connection, even though I was kind of outcast, there was a lot of Latinos in my neighborhood. And, there was a variety of places out there a little bit. And I was Italian. I had a different name, so I really stood out and was picked on and bullied a lot. And when I got found on the schoolyard just rapping some Bone Thugs and Harmony, like one of my black classmates was like, "Hey, oh, you like that music? Oh, that's cool." And I played basketball too, and I was good at it. So it's just I had these connections through entertainment. I think that's another reason why I connected so much with entertainment. It connected me with other people, because we like the same music. Oh, we like things that I like. So it expanded my kind of isolation and bullying, and took that away and made me friends too. So I think that's another reason I connected so much. So yeah, I'd say at the beginning, my first taste of it was joining choir in junior high and performing, and then I enjoyed that and liked performing, and got into drama as well. Started writing lyrics and stuff. I was kind of shy still with my rap stuff. I didn't say much, but I would write a lot. And yeah, and just kind of expanded from there. And then the paranormal stuff comes into play when I was very young, actually. I was about 2 years old, and I stayed at my grandmother's house. I did it often, so it wasn't like anything strange. But
Right.
at the wee morning hours, I was sleeping in the room. My grandfather passed away when I was 3 months old, and I woke up and I saw him, and I freaked out. I was a small child. I didn't know what was happening, um, and that my parents were like, "It's just a bad dream," da 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 da, and they downplayed it, and I started seeing stuff after that. But I stayed quiet. I'm like, man, if my family doesn't believe me, I don't think anybody else is gonna believe me. Um, Maybe like, man, I want to say maybe 12 years later, 10 years later, something like that, maybe a little less. My parents finally sat me down and said, "Hey, our family's all experienced this kind of stuff. My grandmother experienced it in Italy when she grew up there. My mom experienced it here. So my family has a history of this stuff, but they just thought I was too young to tell me about that kind of stuff," which I wish they did, because I had to deal with it alone for a long time. But
Right.
it really sparked my interest. I've always been a huge Ghostbusters fan.
Nah.
And You know, like I said, I grew up with the classic SNL, you know, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, a lot of the people that I admire as comedians. And I always wanted my PhD in parapsychology, which I did earn in 2009, because I wanted to be like, Bill Murray's character, Peter Venkman, and, you know, PhD in parapsychology and psychology and all that. So I always joke, because, go ahead.
Not to interrupt, but remind me, because I'm a huge Ghostbuster fan too, but isn't Peter Venkman a fraud? Like the real investigators were Egon and Ray. Bill was kind of the hustler.
He was, but he actually did have his degrees, even though he definitely was more of the face, the character of the group. Definitely much more of the man's man character, like the ladies' man kind of. Definitely he played that, but he did have the actual background. Like he earned his degrees. They did work at the university.
Yeah.
So at least, you know, obviously based in the story. The funny thing about that is my mom went to see Ghostbusters in theaters when she was ready to pop with me. Like I think I was born like a week later or something like that. So I joked that, you know, from the womb I was a paranormal investigator because, you know, I enjoyed Ray Parker Jr.'s Ghostbusters song from the womb when she went to go see the movie. So you know, something led me to this strange life that sometimes I encounter. So yeah, that's definitely part of it too. And yeah, I mean that's kind of where it all came from. It started with choir, really. That's where I got my first taste of actually performing. Thankfully, it was with a group, so I could shelter myself around the people in, you know, the the bass baritone section and not be the center of attention. But by high school, I started performing. I started taking drama. I did my senior talent show. Me and my best friend, we saved our senior talent show. Not enough people were performing. And because I obviously, you know, I do so many things, they kept asking me, well, can you do some of your comedy? Can you like do a solo song? Can you do this? And I ended up doing like, you know, 3 different performances at my senior talent show.
Nice.
And it's ironic because I was still pretty shy back then. I had stopped being bullied. I didn't really have any social issues directed towards me. I just had social issues because I had been bullied for so long that I became an introvert, kind of shut myself down. I didn't trust people. But yeah, it was weird. By senior year in high school, by doing, especially because I did the talent show, literally the last week of school, I became the most popular guy in school. Everybody's like, man, we should have voted you most likely to be famous. Like, dang, we didn't know you were so talented and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. Again, still kind of shy, you know, kind of accepting that, but so yeah.
I mean, they weren't too far off from it because I mean now you're in feature films.
Yeah.
You're I'm assuming you're still doing the stand-up stuff.
Yep.
You've written, performed, and recorded and released albums of your own original material. I mean, they were right. You should have been voted the most talented out of your school, right? Most likely to succeed. But I really want to dig more into each individual item here. I mean, I've got a shopping list of things you do now.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to kind of give you a brief overview of everything.
We're going to start with the obvious, and the obvious I think is the one that's going to be the easiest to get through first, and that's going to be the acting. Of course, one of the films you're in that's most recent is Ford versus Ferrari.
That's correct.
That before we started the interview, I took a lot of flack for because I'm like, I don't like car movies, and so I learned that I was wrong and stupid for ignoring this movie. So tell me how you got involved in that, the part you play, and you know, is it really the acting thing besides the Ford Ferrari thing? The acting thing is what gravitated you towards it, and like you were saying, how you're most comfortable on stage, tying in the fact that you like being on stage. Does the film or TV performances fulfill that, or are you more gravitated towards like plays and actual like on stage performance acting?
Definitely. So yeah, that was my most recent, at least feature film that was a part of was Ford versus Ferrari. How I got into that, funny enough, I was kind of focusing a little more on music and wasn't doing a lot of acting. And for about 5 years before that opportunity came, which was a couple years ago now, just took a while for the movie to release. I had gotten fed up with a job. I worked at Disneyland for 10 years. Not really going, at least on a path that I wanted to go on, and finally got frustrated and fed up and was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm putting in my 2-week notice. a few days after I made the decision to leave the company, I get a call randomly. They found me in LA casting. Like, hey, we found you in LA casting. You look real Italian. Your name sounds Italian. We want you to know if you want to be part of this period piece, this feature film. And I was like, yeah, sounds great. And they're like, okay, we're going to call you back with the details. So it was originally said it was going to be more like extra work, but the more they called me a few times to ask me if I knew about cars, and I do work on my own cars. So I'm like, yeah, I know enough about cars. I've done more than basic stuff on my own car.
Right.
You speak Italian. I speak fluent Italian. Wow, that's even better. So they just kept calling me, casting kept calling me, asking me questions, and I ended up going in for my fitting. And have this cool old school Ferrari jumpsuit. Like, they really mimicked it from like the 1960s when the era that, we were filming in.
Right.
So I went to do that, got my first SAG voucher ever. Like as a young actor, when I was really young, just getting into it, they always, SAG vouchers always seem like a mystery to me. How do you get it? Like you get lucky and this and that. And then here I am working on Ford versus Ferrari, just starting. And like, within 4 days, I got 4 vouchers. I think you only need 3 or 4 to join the union. So that was really cool. So I went for my fitting. They just kind of wardrobe checked it out, wanted to make sure they got my measurements right for the costume and alter it the way they needed. They cut our hair and kind of like, I had to shave because I have facial hair most of the time, and that's a period piece, 1960s. So I had to shave the face clean, look really old school. Uh, and then finally we went to shoot our first scene. It was supposed to the scene was taking place in Italy in the Ferrari factory. And it was when Ford was coming down. Lee Iacocca, who's played by John Bernthal, was the main character in that scene. So I'm working on an engine in the Ferrari factory, and John Bernthal's walking through the factory, and I'm the last guy on the line, like just finishing up the engine. And he comes up, it says something in Italian, and I acknowledge him. So that was kind of my big scene. I got really featured in that. We shot it a bunch of times. James Mangold actually directed me. I worked directly with John Bernthal. We talked about the scene, what we wanted to do. Unfortunately, I did have a line that got cut. That's just life. That's Hollywood. Stuff stays as it goes. I mean, the movie ended up being over 2 hours, and I shot on that movie for 2 months. And I could imagine how long it would have been with all the stuff we shot. Like that would have been probably a 5-hour movie if they kept everything. But yeah, I ended up being called back after that initial shoot to do another month and a half of shooting, and I'd done 2 weeks of shooting prior. And they're like, yeah, we want you to do it. So I went from a factory worker to the pit crew for Ferrari. And again, there was only like 5 of us on set that spoke Italian. So we became like Ferrari boys. That's what they nicknamed us on set. Okay, we need our Ferrari boys here.
Right.
So we fill up, the Ferrari cars when they came into the pit, we'd run out, and fill it up, and do all that stuff. So I had done a bunch of scenes. Like I said, I did about 2 months of work on the movie. It was a Ford movie, unfortunately, so a ton of the Ferrari stuff got cut. But as an actor, especially one that had not done acting for a little bit, it really reinvigorated my passion for acting. And especially, it gave me confidence because not only did I get compliments from the director, from the assistant directors, from the PAs and the crew, but even my fellow actors and, someone like John Bernthal, complimenting me on what I'm doing really gave me confidence as an actor and reinvigorated it. Because like I said, I didn't do it that much 5 years prior. And after that, I'm like, this is what I want to do. I know it. Like, if James Mangold tells you you're doing a good job, like this is like where I want to be. Like I love that confidence boost it gave me to have so much opportunity. Stuff that got cut. I did other scenes that involved Matt Damon and Christian Bale, where I did stuff in relation to them, and a lot of that got cut too. But I mean, you can't take away the experience I had as an actor and what it did for my confidence. So,
that was something I was going to ask. Is being a professional wrestler for so many years, I got to work with some of the guys that on TV from the WWE and stuff like whether it was conversation or in ring work. You try not to be the mark as we call it in the business, but in the back of your mind, you're always doing that. With you, how was it like working with the Punisher, Batman, and Jason Bourne? I mean, yeah.
It was really incredible because, again, not being in acting for so long, and I don't really treat celebrities as if they're out of this world on a pedestal type of people. I treat them like normal human beings, and I feel like they're surprised when I encounter them, and I'm very professional and respectful. You know what I mean? Like I remember when John Bernthal came up and we were going to do the scene together. He introduced himself, I introduced myself, but I just maintained this professionalism and this calm with me that he seemed kind of shocked, to be honest. Because I just shook his hand like a normal person and said, yeah, he goes, okay, so when I come up and I tell you this, just make sure you look me right in the eye so that way we make sure, we're acknowledging each other, and we do the scene or whatever. So it was pretty cool. Matt Damon seemed like a really down to earth, funny guy, really, just kind of chill and was very humorous, making us all laugh in between takes and stuff like that. Christian Bale's a lot more serious. I didn't really know him personally, obviously, before that, but seeing him on set for so many days for, a month and a half, you really notice a person's personality and character. And it's like, oh, okay, Christian Bale just was very serious almost the entire time. I think one time on set, somebody was taking some set photos, and he was walking towards his race car because that's the scene we were shooting that day. And like I had seen a hint of personality because he made like a funny face and did like a little funny walk. And after like a month and a half, I was like, wow, okay, he does have some personality. Like I finally saw a little something. And I don't know if he's necessarily a method actor. It didn't seem that way, but he's definitely in character, and it seems like he really is serious about that. So you don't really get to see, I think, a lot of his real personality as a person because he's so much into character. But I felt that with like Matt Damon and John Bernthal, they're a little more down to earth when they're acting. They talk to you, they acknowledge everyone, whether it's extras or if you're featured and working closely with them. They're just friendly and they make the environment really fun. And Christian Bale just seems very serious, I'm here to do this work, which there's nothing wrong with that. He did a wonderful job. He's a great actor. I mean, I know he had shot Vice, I think, before he shot Ford versus Ferrari, and he was about as thin as I am. I'm a pretty thin guy. So it was funny to see him after he had gained some weight for the other role, like how quickly some actors are able to gain and lose weight is just surprising. So to be so close to them. So.
Oh yeah. I was shocked on that because I was, like I said, I was doing my research before the interview, and they were mentioning on that how quickly he dropped weight, and I when they mentioned it, and then I saw the scenes that he was shot in, it's like, yeah, he really did, like the skin didn't necessarily tighten up fast enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he may have been the frame style that he was in, say, Terminator Salvation.
Yeah.
But you could definitely tell that he rapidly lost weight and his skin had not completely caught up yet. So he still had kind of that sunken look.
Definitely.
Which, I mean, I guess kind of fits for two guys trying to design a car in 90 days to beat Ferrari. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely fits the look, but it amazes me how actors do that. And then on the end of the coin, you have people like Robert Pattinson refusing to work out for the Batman role.
Right.
You won't go there. We're talking about you. All right,
Nice.
so what besides Ford and Ferrari, what other things have you been in? Like, what other tastes of acting before you took your hiatus?
Before that, let's see. My biggest thing was when I was in college. I did a Salvation Army commercial where I played an abusive husband. So that was kind of a last minute thing. I was working at a local TV studio as a co-host of a local talk show, and the executive producer, or the guy who runs the studio there, realized I was an actor and they needed somebody last minute for this commercial. They had just, I guess, acquired to do. And like, Jean-Pierre, you're an actor, right? Hey, we have this commercial. Want to know if you can do this? I'm like, oh yeah, sure, I can make it. So I ended up doing that, and they were really impressed. I had to play this like, there was two kind of personalities I had to play in that commercial. One was the loving husband, the romance, like kissing, the whatever, significant other, and playing that romantic side, and then the brutal, like, I got to get mad and like really show that, upset and angry and mistreating this woman. So it was interesting to go, in a short amount of time to like, oh, romantic lovey-dovey and happy to like, angry. And so that was one of my biggest, I guess, achievements at that time, I would say. And then a lot of local stuff. I did a lot of theater. I did a lot of voice impressions for like plays and stuff. So I went into studios and recorded for that. So I do a lot of celebrity impressions and things like that. So I remember I did The Man Who Came to Dinner at Cerritos College, and they needed all celebrity voices. So I did like George Bush, Bill Clinton, Christopher Walken, like just a ton of, famous people impressions, because the main guy for The Man Who Came to Dinner is a radio host, and he interviews all these famous people. So I ended up doing that. and I got a great review in the local newspaper, which was cool. It was definitely a good accomplishment for me as someone who likes to play around, have fun, and do voices, and get some recognition for doing that. And it was a little tough because I was still a young voice back then, so I was learning kind of my footing and my impressions.
Mhm.
And I was in the studio switching voices, like just split it. Like I had to go say one line as Clinton, switch, say one line as Christopher Walken, switch, say one line as George Bush. And it was just like so quick that some of my impressions weren't as spot on as I liked them to be. And even with that, like I still got like a really good review. So that was definitely a cool accomplishment. Besides that, there was other stuff with the paranormal. Actually, I was on a premiere episode of Haunted History when they rebooted it. I think it was 2014 on the Manson murders.
Okay.
So that was one of the most popular episodes, and it got re-picked up because of that episode as well. So that was really cool. And still to this day, I get people messaging me or contacting me. Hey, I watched this paranormal show. I saw you on there, and I was like, oh yeah, that was a long time ago. That's cool.
Hard to believe 2014 a long time ago. So
Right.
with the voice acting and the voiceover work, I mean, do you have some credits to cartoons or video games, or is that something you would even have interest in?
It is so that's unfortunately, and I'm still trying to figure out a better way to break in. The voiceover industry is one of the hardest industries within entertainment to get into. There's literally 12 people that do every single voice. And
Right.
like it's hard to break in to get big gigs. I've done some web series. I've done some radio commercials. So I have a few credits on my voiceover, and I have a nice reel of my voiceovers. I worked at my college radio station for many years as well, so I have lots of material in my voice. And I get a few voiceover auditions for my agent and stuff too. So especially what was it recently? I had an audition for an Italian commercial since I speak Italian. So I did a little voiceover for this Italian commercial, and we'll see if I hear back from that job. But yeah, it's definitely one of the more difficult industries within the industry to break into because of how tight knit and small the groups are who do voiceover work.
Yeah, to play off of what you said, there's only like 12 voice actors that get all the voice acting work. It took 12 of them to replace Mel Blanc. But no, you're not wrong. And later on, obviously, this one's going to go over our normal time because there's so much to talk about with your career.
Definitely.
If you don't mind, obviously.
No,
But
fine, yeah.
one of the things I do have to address. That's the word that was the word I was looking for. One of the things we have to address, and I don't mean this in any form of disrespect or whatever, but you speak Italian, you are Italian, your last name is Italian. How did you wind up with a French name?
So funny thing, and this is something I realized more recently. So my abuser, who's my grandmother, chased my dad away when I was 2 years old. Now, she always made it out that he just left us in the street. But I met my dad recently after 31 years of separation, and I've started to learn the true story of my family and all the things that have happened. So my dad's last name is not Italian. He's actually from Argentina, but he's French, Italian, Spanish. So I have actually a bigger heritage than Italian in me. But my grandmother really wanted to push that home. So she changed our last name to the family name. And she did a lot of things when we were very little, and we didn't understand the magnitude of it till recently. So, yeah, there is some French on my father's side, actually, which, I always kind of wondered why I got the French name. And my family never really said it. They tried to erase my father from history. So I really feel like a part of my identity was stolen that I'm just learning about. I even have some indigenous roots from Argentina that my wife is Navajo. So, I have a lot of connection to the indigenous culture. And funny enough, I have some on my dad's side. I actually have almost the same percentage of indigenous that I do Italian. So I don't even have that much Italian in me as I thought, even though I look it, speak it, and have a name like it. But
Nice.
yeah, that comes on my dad's side actually. So
Okay. I was curious because I'm sitting there like you kept pointing out the Italian. I speak Italian. My last name's Italian. I got the job because I speak Italian. My last name's I like Italian. I'm like, but Jean-Pierre is French.
yep.
I'm like, is there Canadian roots or
Yeah, I think my father had said it's the Basque French that our heritage is from. So yeah, I recently learned about that. So yeah, so a little French there on my dad's side. That's where the name came from.
That was just a personal curiosity.
That's great. I appreciate it because that's helping me express my culture more. Because again, I was raised like you're Italian. That's it. But
Right.
I think having the bigger background is actually better. You know, I like to connect with people anyway on different levels, and I think you do that by knowing more about yourself and knowing more about other cultures and people. So yeah, I was excited when I found out I wasn't just Italian and that's it.
All right. So, but back to some of the things you do. Obviously, we're going to get into the one that I know you're probably kind of dreading because you and I have completely different views on the art form.
Okay.
However, as one songwriter to another, I obviously still appreciate it. Let's talk about the rap thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Tell me a little bit about your career in the music industry as a rap artist. What made you gravitate to how you write and what you write about? Especially because in this day and age of rap, where everything's the mumble rappers and the little
Yeah.
names and stuff like that, that you decide to stay with. As I told you, I have an appreciation for the older rap, like the
Yeah.
Heavy and the Boys and Young MC and
Yep.
Tone. So
As do I. So we share that same love of a particular type of style and era.
where it was more about the battle of the microphone and poetic justice as opposed to what it is nowadays, which I'm not even sure what it is nowadays.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah, so obviously growing up in Long Beach, California, like I said, I didn't necessarily live in the best area, so I was exposed to rap quite a bit. Cars going by, neighborhood parties, all of that. I heard it all the time. My parents weren't fond of it and were like, and like I said, my dad wasn't around, so it's my mom and my grandmother, and they were like, oh, don't like that music, but they saw that I liked it. They saw that I would nod my head and that I seemed to enjoy it. So they just said like, don't take what they're saying literally because I grew up in the era of gangster rap, and that's especially
Right.
Long Beach, Snoop Dogg, Warren G, all these dudes. There's a lot of gangster lifestyle and party lifestyle. And I think it was smart of them at least to tell me how to look at art instead of saying like or not saying anything. They were just like, you don't have to take it literally about shooting people or doing drugs or whatever it is that you
Mhm.
might hear in the music. And I think that had an influence on me and how I listened to it rather than taking it as the word. And again, I grew up in that area, so I actually saw that stuff happen. So it's not like I didn't know. I think that again, that's what gravitated me towards it is they were talking about the streets. And I saw what happened on my streets. Like people were shot in my neighborhood, cops were shot in my neighborhood. So it's like, when you're on lockdown because they're looking for killers, like that's kind of serious. So yeah, I think I connected because I knew what they were talking about, and that's where the connection came in. And I started writing when I was in junior high, just penning little rhymes and stuff. And I wrote gangster rap because that's what I knew, but I think I didn't share it because I didn't feel comfortable. I knew people who did that stuff, but I never did it. And funny enough, the people I knew that did that stuff encouraged me not to do that stuff. They saw who I was and they saw my personality, and I wasn't judgy of people, especially no matter what they did. Like if you were my friend, you were my friend. It didn't matter if you sold drugs on the side or you gang banged or whatever. Like that's not my business. Like you do
Right.
what you do. But because I think they connected with me and told me not to get in that lifestyle because I never judged them for it. They were like, you know what, dude, you're talented. Like don't mess up like I did. Because I've had friends that got locked up in prison for stuff they did, and like that had a huge impact on how I looked at life because they told me like, don't mess up like I did, man. Like keep going. You're a comedian, you're a rapper, you do all this stuff. Keep doing it, man. You're good. So you can save yourself from this lifestyle that I put myself in. So that was really profound. Just a side note on my kind of rise in this. So I kept my raps kind of private because again, I'm not a gangster, but I was writing that kind of. That's just what I knew. You kind of write off what you know. It wasn't until years later in college when I met one of my friends when I was working, and he introduced me to a rap artist named Immortal Technique. He's from New
Okay.
York, very conscious, political, hardcore and street, but he talks about social issues, political issues, and it clicked. And I was like, this is what I need to do. This is where I need to be. I want to make music with a message. And it really changed um, me as an artist and really once I started writing like that with conscious content in mind, like it just flowed out of me and it was natural. And I mean, I come from battling, so like I started out going to Leimert Park. It's in Los Angeles. They have a place there where you can rap battle and go up and try out songs and different things. So I learned a lot from those people. They taught me little tips and tricks too to get better at my craft, and definitely appreciate that. And like I said, for me, most important is a message in music. So my words are very clear. I have different styles. I can rap fast, I can slow it down, but I tend to like to rap slower so I can get a message across. When I was younger, I used to do more metaphoric type stuff. Now
Hmm.
my music is very direct. Sometimes I'll throw metaphors in there just for fun, but most of the time I'm very direct. It's clear. You hear the message. You know what I'm rapping about. So that's kind of where I started in college. That really pushed me to the next level. Again, a lot of the time I still kept it to myself or my small group of people because I was still shy to some extent with
Hmm.
everything I'd been through, the isolation, the abuse, all that stuff kind of made me quiet. But man, I wrote a ton of songs. I put in MySpace back in the days when MySpace was the thing. I started a little music profile to put my music out there, and surprisingly, people loved my music. Like I was getting booked shows off just a couple MySpace songs. So really, that's how I started. And there were some pretty big players in LA that were hitting me up and like saying, "Hey, we got this hip hop show. I like your music. If you want to come perform over here," and that kind of started it for me. And then I was also doing rap battles. So you go up, you freestyle off the top of your head. Sometimes I won money, prizes, other stuff. It was a lot of fun. And then I won other shows to perform at for some big artists. I opened up for members of the Tank Clan and a lot of different other people. I toured locally in Southern and Northern California, opening up for a lot of acts. And from about 2006 to 2008, when the whole thing crashed, I was doing pretty well. Like I was going to college as well as performing at nighttime as like a job and making money. I worked with good promoters, so if I packed the club, they would give me a nice cut. Like so, it's kind of nice. But once the economy hit, 08 and everything kind of collapsed, all the good promoters I worked with weren't there anymore. It was all pay to play stuff. Oh yeah, give me $300 for these tickets, and if you make the money back, you make the money back. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Man, I used to pack clubs to get paid, and now I need to pay you just so you get your money. Like, so I kind of stayed local, stayed quiet, did my thing fine, built my home skills, like produce different things. And unfortunately, working at Disney was another abusive situation. The company does not get on it. They don't pay us well, and they definitely don't feel creative. Even though they're the most creative engineering company, like they really don't encourage your creativity. Like those rules do. And I think that put a damper on me too. But I also got very creative. I wrote an entire album about Disney. It's free. It's on my website. So that's kind of my major one that I've done a couple of music videos for that I have on YouTube. And you can find that at www.mcpierre.com. That's the letter M, the letter C, PIERRE. So I have my site up. I got music videos on there. I have links to all my other content, comedy, that stuff. But yeah, that's kind of where I started. And now quarantine, well, before and during, I'm with a lady who's doing a documentary about her son who was killed through gun violence. And
Okay.
she heard my music that I have up on SoundCloud and liked it a lot. And she's like, let's work on this project together. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So I actually wrote an entire album that has to do with injustice, in our system and our authority, gun violence, and a loss of life. So the whole album is written. I need to record it still, but I arranged all the music. It's written. It's pretty much ready to go. We're going to start working on a documentary pretty soon, and that's going to be a main focus. And I might release the music beforehand. Details. Just with the documentary. So that's one project. So I have an album time, and I have right now.
I'm
Uh,
starting to I'm really starting to lose you.
oh, is it not sounding well or what?
No, I'm starting to lose you a little bit on sound. I don't know if the connection's getting a little weird. It's I'm checking to make sure it's not my end.
Yeah, no worries. Let me know.
No, you're fine. Just you were fading in and out. Like all of a sudden you'd be talking normal volume and then back to normal volume. It's like I'm not sure what's going on here. So that's why if it seems like I'm not paying attention, I am, but I'm also trying to see
Yeah,
what's.
that's right. No, that's fine. No worries. Things
Uh,
happen.
but yeah, I mean, because like especially you were given the Facebook page thing and it faded out, so I don't think anybody heard the actual
Oh, okay.
the Facebook page thing.
Yeah,
That's why I was especially like, let him know that he's fading in and out because I want to make sure people know where to
yeah.
find your stuff. I'm really fascinated by the fact that you took you took a more direct approach with your lyrics, with your raps. The reason I find this fascinating is, again, I'm a songwriter myself. I went the opposite direction with my music. Again, rock metal. I live in the metaphor, and I've always described what I wrote as more of like I compared it to like a horror movie. Like the things I write are horrible things. I'm not saying I did them, and I'm not incorporating that you do it in any way, shape, or form. What I'm telling is a horror story, and there's usually some sort of theme or message within that horror story, or at least I'd like to think so. You know what I mean? And that's always how I've described my writing. So it's really interesting to me that you took the opposite approach and said, instead of writing metaphors and making people think about what I'm trying to say, I'm just going to tell you what I'm saying. You know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I don't know what led me to that. I think just through my life, I've evolved and become more direct, and I felt like that was better to do. It's clear, there's no need to think about it. I'm telling you. So I think that leads to even more thinking, but now you can think about what it is exactly instead of trying to find your way there. So, because when I was younger, a younger rap artist, I definitely used a lot more metaphors, and I don't know, I kind of just grew out of it and said, let me just be direct, forget the metaphors.
So I mean that was definitely fascinating to me, and it's kind of funny because a couple years ago, when I was with my last band, I'm actually working on an album now, but it's a solo album, and it's going to be released for free. It's the first time I'm trying to do it all by myself. No band, no musicians. It's just me. I think it's going on all right, but it's slow. But in the last band, I actually had written a song that was intended to be a duet with a rapper.
Oh, nice.
You were talking about like you've been writing since you were in junior high school, and I was laughing because I'm thinking about the folder that's on this computer that I'm on right now. That's lyrics since I was like 13 years old to yesterday. Because you never stop the writing process.
True.
I stepped away from music for a good many years, being a father, getting married, doing the whole adult thing, if you will. And it never stopped me from writing. I mean, I imagine you're pretty much the same way, sleeping with the pen and paper next to the bedstand. Yep.
Pretty much, yeah. It's some of my coping mechanism when I was working for Disney, when I was just having the worst time, is just writing, and then jokes were there as well as lyrics for songs. I coined the term napkin rapping, because I would find a napkin at work and grab my pen and just jot down lyrics I was thinking of. Like, that's a tight rhyme. Oh, that's funny. Same thing with jokes. I just find whatever I could find, or scraps of paper, napkins, whatever. I have an actual, folder with pads of paper and napkins and all that, just different lyrics written on it. And you find a way if you don't have something on you to like write it.
But it's funny because you ready for the most perfect segue. We're gonna perfect segue from one section to another. I've never been set up for a better segue in my life. Okay, with the raps and writing lyrics, and you said you also write your jokes. How many times has a joke wound up in a lyric?
It definitely has, actually, and actually, surprisingly enough, they've actually switched places. Like there's some raps I created that translated perfectly into my stand-up comedy. Like I did a whole album about working at Disney, right? I got out my frustration, all my stress, all everything, and my impressions, and I did a short little freestyle that I did in Mickey Mouse's voice, rapping like he was a gangster rapper, and it's just a funny track. And around that time is when I got back into stand-up. I'd been writing and not performing for a little bit, and I went back in, and I used that as my closer, and I would just shut the clubs down. As soon as that Dr. Dre beat came on, and you hear, yeah, I'm about to rip this, and I just started rapping like Mickey Mouse, people would go nuts, and they were like, dude, you killed it. That was so funny. I've never heard anything like that. So it was just like, yeah, they definitely have crossed over both ends. There's jokes that are like, oh, that'd be perfect as a lyric. I'll turn that into a rhyme, and it'll be a cool little punchline.
Right.
Or vice oh man, this rap would be hilarious as a joke. I could easily translate that to my comedy. So yeah, I've definitely merged both for sure.
So yeah, with the stand-up comedy, obviously you just said you dropped a comedy album. So this is more than just, the local open mic night at some comedy cabaret. This is something that like you've actively pursued and gone through the trenches of as well, alongside with all the other things that you've done.
Yeah,
Uh, you know, how did you discover transition, like you said, the acting, the drama, the music all came from like junior high school eras. And I know you said that comedy, at least in its rawest form, came from dealing with the abusers and all. But
yeah.
when did it become an active approach? When did you say, you know what, I want to take a shot at stand up and see where this takes me?
So the thought was there. High school is when I really started really performing like full on hardcore, and I really watched Saturday Night Live at the time. Wrote my own sketches while I was at school with my friends. We'd write little sketches and comedy things and like little jokes, and the interest started there. But being so young, it was hard to get into clubs. Being with my family, they weren't very supportive of any of my creative endeavors, so I had a lot of blockades. They're like, yeah, my abuser said I was wrong for everything I ever wanted to do with my life. And even she even went as far to use God to say that he would strike me down for having my ambitions or whatever. So like I had a lot of roadblocks growing up that stopped me from. I think I would accomplish a lot more a lot younger because I had this passion, but it just kept getting shut down. But once I got into college, once I had a car, I was like, I can go where I want and I can do what I want. Okay. My local community college that I went to offered a stand-up comedy class. And that was the reason I chose that college, was because they had a stand-up comedy class. Not even kidding you. That was my decision. And I was like, I'm taking first semester, I'm taking this class. And that's where it started. And the other people who were in the class, they were older guys than me. They were just taking that class at the college. They weren't going to school. I was going to school, but also taking that because it's what I was interested in. And the older guys helped me out. And they're like, okay, we're all going to start a little group together. We're going to text each other. We're going to go to clubs together. We're going to go to open mics. We're going to do, and like, it just started this process of us hitting up clubs. And like I said, for me, only being 18, a lot of the bookers and club owners were really surprised when they found out I was 18, because I've been a performer for a long time by that point. So I always feel comfortable on stage. And a lot of them just told me like, wow, you stand up on that stage like you've been up there for 20 years. And I'm like, really? Like, I mean, I do get nervous. I do have some issues from trauma from my abuse, but there's so much passion in me that it doesn't stop me from going after what I want. So yeah, that's kind of where it started. And like I said, I took that class and then just kept going from there, kept writing jokes, kept performing. And there you go. That's where it started.
Nice. Well, see that how far has it gone? Have you, like when you did the gangster rap Mickey Mouse a second ago?
Yeah.
I had kind of a flashback of thinking I may have seen you on like a late night show.
I wish.
Because
Not yet. I'm building up right now my comedy career a lot more. It's kind of a slow process because of the quarantine. Obviously, a lot of clubs, a lot of opportunities are being closed off. But I just got in contact with this huge booker that I'm working with. He's also a casting director. Whenever restrictions are lifted, I'm actually going to get flown out to Florida to perform. And if that goes well, I'm being put on tour with them. So I'm be doing definitely a lot more comedy once the restrictions are lifted and I'm able to. So that's definitely going to be a huge starting point for me. I haven't done any late night stuff, but I've been interviewed. I've done stuff for TV and documentaries and different things, and I've showed off a lot of my talents that I've shown you.
right.
But my Mickey rap is just either my album, which is a rap album that just happened to have that personified in that song. And then my stand-up routine, just I killed with that material. So I performed at a lot of major clubs, performing that, Mickey Mouse rap that just shut the place down. I've also auditioned for America's Got Talent multiple times. I've used that, and I've used different comedy and music to audition for that show. So those are the biggest things.
Maybe that's where I remember, because I do remember like seeing a reaction to saying, something about this, that, or the other. And when you describe the Dre beat drop, and then all of a sudden like, oh, I'm about to kick it, huh? And I know I'm not a voice actor, and all, and it's like it sparked a memory. It's like, didn't I see that before?
It's possible. sometimes I'm shocked of the stuff that gets put out there that I've done, because sometimes people don't tell you they're releasing stuff, and you're
Right.
just surprised to see it. I know I went to my IMDb, and like 3 shows that I did a while ago just popped up on there. They didn't tell me they were like when they were releasing it or anything. So it can be interesting being in this industry when surprising stuff happens. I did some commercials. I work over at Queen Mary's Dark Harbor in California for their Halloween event. I'm one of
Right.
their main character monsters. I've done commercials for them. I'm on merchandise, I've done promotional material, photo shoots, all that kind of stuff. When I did the commercials, they didn't tell me that they were releasing the day they were. And I happened to be on YouTube watching a video. All of a sudden, my face pops up on screen, and I'm like, oh, okay, they released it today, I guess. That's pretty cool. It's kind of because especially after so long, I had taken time off of acting, and that was shortly after Ford versus Ferrari too. And that movie took 2 years to release because they wanted to release, I think, closer to the award ceremonies because they know it was a good film and they wanted to see what kind of awards they could win. So they held off the release of the movie. So getting that was really profound for me because what the abuse did to me most of my life as a creative is I didn't take chances. I took care of other people before I took care of myself. I never really, like, I always pursued it. And honestly, all of my work is starting to pay off because the resume I've built up over the last 20 years is massive now. And so when I apply for work, like, I have, like, they can look at my resume and go, this dude's done a lot of stuff. Uh,
Right.
so it wasn't a waste of time, but I never invested fully like I am now into my career, and I'm just going for it, and I'm making these opportunities actually manifest and happen now. So it was incredible to watch that YouTube video, my face pop up. I teared up, to be honest. I'm like, wow, like I don't have a lot of support and not a lot of people behind me because I changed everything. I quit my job, that it put my marriage in jeopardy. It put a lot of what people felt about me in jeopardy because I took a risk. I said, I'm F my job. I want to live my dreams. I'm tired of not living my dreams.
Right.
And to see yourself on pop up on screen is just like, man, I don't even have that much support, but I did it. So I guess really the only belief you need is in yourself. You don't need anyone else. If you believe in you, you can do it. So
But it still helps to have somebody else about in your corner, and obviously you
I like
do with your wife, and that she's still there. So obviously she had your back. She wasn't so happy about the quitting the job part.
yeah, no, she's always been very supportive, and that's something I love about her. She's not a fan of the entertainment industry very much. She has her own reasoning for that, but she's never told me to stop, even if she doesn't like it. She knows, especially with what I've been through, what creativity does for me. You know what I mean? So I think that's really made her even more supportive of like, yeah, this is what he needs for him to heal from what he's been through and to express himself. Because I think the biggest thing of how I was raised is I was never able to express myself. Anytime I did, my abuser was like, "You're wrong. No, don't say that." And it was always like, "Stop being who you are." And now I'm not living that way anymore. So it's like really great to just be.
Well, now I gotta dig into the next one here. I gotta dig into this one. This one's the one I expected us to go over on more than anything else,
Yeah.
because I've always been fascinated with this subject matter. I do watch all the shows on TV and all, and I've gone out and done my own quote unquote investigations and stuff.
Nice.
The paranormal. Now, I know we already discussed how you gained an interest into it, but what made you transition from just having an interest where you would like maybe sit in a dark room and talk into the mirror looking for Bloody Mary, for example, and switch over to actual paranormal investigation, things like using EMFs and hunting out specific locations? Like what made you go after that? I'm assuming it started as a hobby.
Yeah, pretty much. Just some. I have a lot of passion, so even with a hobby, I was very passionate about that hobby. So it started when my family finally sat me down and talked to me about what they experienced growing up, and that they've experienced it too. And it hit me because I know people that have experienced it and they're believers, and I know people that haven't experienced it and they're not believers. And I'm fine on either spectrum. Like I believe it's an experiential thing, and you believe because of what you experience. So without the experience, it's hard to say what it's like. So I totally get that. But yeah, my family sitting me down and talking to me sparked the interest, the real interest in pursuing it. And the answer I still haven't found, at least completely, factually, solidly, is why certain people seem to experience it and others don't. And that was the question I first started off with when investigating this stuff. I was like, I'm really interested in why does this stuff happen? How come certain people only? So there's those questions that really lingered in my mind when my family sat me down and talked to me about it when I was relatively young. And I just started really studying it. I bought all kinds of books. This is before TV shows were really around. There was a few like Scariest Places on Earth. I would watch that. And, they go to like the most haunted places, and you're like, oh, I want to go there. That's so cool. Um, and then I met my best friend in high school, and we happened to have a lot of interests. We were in choir together. That's how we met. And then we had other classes, so we just clicked. And then I was like, yeah, I really like ghosts and stuff. He was, oh, that stuff's cool. So we just slowly started. We had an English teacher help us write letters to like the Queen Mary and famous places in California and see if they would let us come in and check it for ghosts or whatever. And we had other family and friends and family friends who owned shops in haunted like buildings and stuff. And then, oh, we can get you in late at night after it closes down. So, we just started buying like night vision cameras, audio recorders, little cheap equipment just to like go out and investigate.
Right.
And started being mentored by a few really big names out here in California. And we were in college, so we used that as a way to get in with everybody, saying like, oh, we're college students as well. We're doing research, which we were. One of my friends was doing filming, and he was filming almost like a documentary style of the paranormal. So
Right.
We used that as ways to get in with some of these people, and they liked us. They knew we were serious. Bonnie Vent, who's a famous clairvoyant in San Diego, clicked with us right away, mentored us, brought us in on her big cases out in San Diego. So yeah, we just really started there and eventually started building. The day I got married, I got approved to be a 501c3 nonprofit. My organization is called the Southern California Paranormal Detectives. And we've been doing it since 2000. So it's, going on 20 years now that we've been, officially doing it. And even before that, I studied it, researched it, I have a passion for it. So definitely started as a hobby, very passionate hobby that we spent a lot of time on, a lot of late nights going to public places that we could get into and, walking around and trying to see what can happen.
All right. Well, the first thing I got to ask is like with the rapping and with the stand-up comedy, obviously more than I would say acting, but I'm sure acting probably had it as well.
Yeah.
How many times have you been on a stage or in a performance in a building and you just have a feeling and you turn around to like the booker or the owner and just be like, look, when this place closes down, can I hang out for a couple hours?
Funny enough, when I was younger, that happened a lot when I would perform in theaters and stuff like that. We would be on like tech rehearsals, and there's not many people sometimes in the rehearsals, and you see someone in the control room, but there's no way there's anyone in that control room. So yeah, you're like, hey, hold on, yeah. So when we're done with rehearsal, hey, so sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no, but yeah, definitely, I've had quite a few instances where like, hey, I think something's going on here. Would we be able to investigate this place? And most people are pretty nice, to be honest. We're like, yeah, you guys come check it out if you want, and we'll find a date and set it up when we're not having any shows or performances or rehearsals, and come check it out. So yeah, I've definitely had that happen, performing wise in certain theaters and stuff.
With you doing it, and like you said, you've been a part of some of the TV shows that are out there now. Like you said, when I'm not really sure how old you are. I'm 43, and when I started getting into ghosts and ghost hunting, if you will, there was no TV shows. Just like you said, like you had books and you just had, let's go see what we could find. The urban legends like out here in Philadelphia, New Hope. There's like a covered bridge, for example, that if you stand at like 3 o'clock at night, or 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever, completely still and quiet, you can hear horse-drawn carriages go across this covered bridge. Wow. And you know what? There's no lie to that. You stand there in complete silence, no cars are going on, and you literally hear the clopping of horse hooves and the grinding of the wheels. You hear it going across. It's absolutely breathtaking. But like that was the extent of it. So
yeah.
The questions leading in, like, since you have been on the TV shows that are around now for Paranormal Investigation, I'm gonna play the devil's advocate a little bit here, and ask: is it really necessary for the darkness and the things? Is that drama for the TV, or is that absolutely necessary and essential to be able to, I guess, open up the sensories to catch some of the things that they're missing, that you would miss in light or activity?
It's kind of a double-edged sword. It's both. So as far as someone like who's familiar with energy, when we're using our equipment, like an EMF meter can pick up if TV's nearby or computers nearby or the lights are on, if there's, depending if there's uncovered wiring in a wall. So it can help, but it's not 100% necessary. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I prefer it because I do like to eliminate all kinds of electrical interference we might capture that we might, misidentify as like something paranormal happening when it's just really, a bad wiring in a wall. And when
Right.
the lights on that wiring is more exposed and giving off more energy. So there's a purpose to it, but it's not 100% necessary. But there definitely is a purpose to it in certain areas, especially if there's like a lot of electricity flowing in the room or, certain electrical panels, things like that. It can be to your advantage to shut those off to eliminate any interference you might get. But it's not 100%. Like you don't have to do it that way, but it can help. So that's the way I see it. It's give and take. Like I've done investigations where sometimes you have the inability to shut things off because of just how the place is set up, and you deal with it and you figure out ways around it. But it definitely can help to eliminate energy sources, and lights emit energy. Obviously, everything emits energy, especially when electrically tied. So it does help, but it's not necessary 100%. They definitely, I think, play it up.
Well, that's another one that I would throw out there, just mostly for the listeners more than anybody else. And I will preface this with an experience that I've personally had myself before, in situations where like late at night you're sleeping, whatever, and you wake up and you don't know why you wake up, but all of a sudden like your body is heavy, like you can't. move. It almost feels like somebody's or something is holding you down, and
Yeah.
So I fully believe that that's a spirit or a darker presence, if you will. I don't know. I'm not gonna speculate on exactly what it is,
Yeah.
but the point of it is that they can manifest physical contact with people. Now we go to the TV shows. You think of ghost adventurers, ghost hunters, stuff like that, where you see them react to a physical contact. They feel somebody grab their hair. They feel somebody trip them. They pull up their shirt and all of a sudden they have scratch marks on their back. In your opinion and your own experiences, how true to life is that, or is that again dramatization to amp up the suspense of the TV show?
Not unfortunately being in some of those experiences, I couldn't give 100% on whether all of it is real or not. It does happen. I can tell you as somebody who's been doing it for 20 years that the frequency of that kind of stuff is rare. I've been doing it for 20 years, recording it almost the entire time, audio, equipment, everything. I maybe have 5 really good pieces of visual evidence that I've ever captured, like 5 in 20 years. And then if you count audio and things like that, I have a lot more evidence of that. But something like visually is not as common as the shows make it out to be now. What I can't say for sure is some of the places these people go to are known to be really haunted. So the frequency of it technically could be higher if they are in places where there's way more activity, or in the vein of Ghost Adventures, when you go in acting like an idiot towards these things, they're probably not going to be too nice to you because you're being disrespectful and rude. So that's not an approach that I take. I'm very respectful. I'm a very spiritual person, so when I go in, I always say I humanize the experience by communicating with whatever's there, trying to talk to it and connect with it, rather than like, hey, come here, do this, do that. I'm not demanding. I'm more calm. So I think they do exaggerate, and they've been caught exaggerating. I've captured a few things that I noticed on shows that it seemed like they were fabricating, and they changed those things when I caught it. When I had, I guess, a pretty well-known name in the field when I was really starting up, my name got around to a lot of places. So I didn't know that I knew people who knew people on a show, and that word got to them. And then all of a sudden, I watched the show again. I'm like, oh, they fixed that. Okay.
Well, see, that was gonna. It's funny you mentioned that about how Zach and Emmett at Ghost Adventures are more aggressive towards the entities and all. That was going to lead into my next portion of this, actually was using ghost adventurers and ghost hunters as perfect examples because they're completely contrasts to each other. That my personal viewpoint is that there seems to be two different types of paranormal investigators. There are ones like the ghost adventurers who are desperate to prove that these things are happening, and then on the opposite end of the coin, you have the ghost hunters who seem like they're almost desperate to prove that these are explainable.
Yeah.
Like to disprove the paranormal of it. You know, with the way they do their investigations. Which one would you say are you, or would you say is the more effective approach for somebody who's interested in ghost hunting or investigating?
I mean, so I call myself a skeptical believer because I'm a believer. I've experienced crazy things in my life, from UFOs to ghosts to chupacabra even. Like I've seen a lot of weird stuff. But I always approach this using the scientific method. I test it. I see if we could figure out what's going on first before we deem it paranormal. So I personally like it better to go in not assuming everything's a ghost or haunted and figuring out what it is from that point. Because if you jump in automatically thinking it's a ghost, everything becomes a ghost.
Right.
I've had clients get upset with me because they bring me videos and audio and footage, and I look at it and I'm able to determine what it is without it being anything paranormal. Like, okay, like, and this has happened now multiple times recently in the last year. Clients come in with this security footage from around their house, and this weird light appears on camera. But luckily, I have experience in the video, audio, visual field, so I'm looking visually, and I'm like, oh, there's a spider right on the lens, and it's reflecting off of the IR light, and it's causing another light. I know it is because when it moves, that other light moves. So it's not a ghost. You have some most likely insect that's on the lens creating this illusion that looks like that. And even with me analyzing it and having all these years of experience, that will know I know my place is haunted. I'm like, I'm not saying your place is not haunted. I'm saying that this video is not a ghost. I'm saying that looks like a spider to me on the lens, or some sort of insect, extremely small spider or extremely small insect, creating this light effect by the reflection of light. So that's my personal opinion on it. Sorry that I disappointed you, but doesn't mean that stuff doesn't exist. It means that I analyzed it to the best of my knowledge, and I couldn't come up with any reason for it to be paranormal. You know, what would be the purpose of this? I can't find a reason for this to happen. So it seems like this to me. So yeah, I definitely approach it more using the scientific method and go in as clear as I can, because I'm sure I have bias, but I try to go in just like, let's see what it is, and then we'll decide once we have all the facts.
Have you ever run into a situation, for example, I've seen a couple ghost hunters, and I don't remember the name of the show, but it's the one where they have a New York City cop investigate physical evidence, and at the same time they have a clairvoyant or something.
Yeah.
And then they compare notes at the end, and sometimes they get to the point where it's like, look, this is a really bad thing, a bad situation. Like, you may need to think about selling or moving, or, type of. Have you run into that in your 20 years where you've gotten into a thing where it's like, look, this is not a good situation? Yeah.
I don't think we've ever had to tell anyone to move or leave. We definitely have had to ask for other people's help, or most clients really just want validation of what they're going through. Some people are very religious, and they turn to their religion once we come in and say, yeah, you have something here, and it doesn't seem like it's good, and it seems like it's a bigger problem than just, little instances of weird things happening. So we have like cleansed homes though, using our own methods. My wife being Native American, we've used sage to clear the house and put protection around it. We had one client who one of their properties they couldn't rent. Every time they rented it, people would leave because of all the paranormal activity. After we went in, we did our cleansing. They gave us a huge donation because it was the first time that the renters didn't have any complaints, and they were able to rent the property now without having any issues. So we've helped our clients sometimes with dealing with that.
Nice, very nice. Well, here's the portion of the show that we start winding down. Here's the portion of the show.
Yeah.
You've done all these things. You you go out ghost hunting at night after you get done on set doing a set, for music, and then jumping over to another place for a set on the stand-up comedy stage, and then you got to get up early for the casting call of the next film and movie you do. Where do you find time for just Jean-Pierre? What is the wind down time for you?
So the weird thing is I really love being creative. Like even acting, like there's something about creating the world. Now, stage is great, but there's something about film and TV that creating that the process of creating that is so great. So I really feel alive and like my soul's healing when I perform or when I act or when any of those instances, even paranormal investigating that's relaxing. I mean, you'll be in a place for 6 hours and nothing happens. Imagine that kind of solitude and peace. You're just
Right.
they're quiet. Most of the time, nothing happens when we do this stuff. But yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit of a video gamer. So when I have time, I have a good buddy of mine that's in the Air Force, actually my co-founder of my paranormal group. He's in Oklahoma in the Air Force, and we usually get on PUBG on Xbox and play together and chat and catch up with life. So that's a little bit of my wind down time. Me and my wife are unfortunately separated by distance. She's at UC Davis up in Northern California, and I'm in Los Angeles, California. So we have a little distance, but when we're together, just being together, watching a TV show, relaxing, those are really my downtimes. But it's so weird that really the performing aspect of everything I do, even the creative process of what I perform, is healing to me. Comedy comes from tragedy. I think that's what most people don't realize. Some of my best material came from some of the worst stuff that happened in my life. So it's, really all of it's healing to me. And even though it is hard work, I'm so fulfilled by it that it doesn't feel like work. It's really the job I want for the rest of my life, because I want to wake up every day thinking, today I get to play this character, or I get to do this, or I get to do that. And it doesn't feel like work, because I've worked most of my life and I didn't have fun. But when I do this, I have so much fun. I get to have experiences that normal people don't have every day. And so, it's healing for me. Just that's my downtime.
All right. Well, then again, with the lead in, I can't express it enough. Musician, actor, voice actor, stand-up comedian, paranormal investigator. What's next? Like, is there avenues you're looking to do? Like, what's left for you to do?
It's what I kind of mentioned earlier about crossing over with the comedy and the rap, and how they influence each other. I try to be innovative. I really do think outside the box a lot. So this paranormal album I'm working on right now, it's a paranormal rap album, all about paranormal stuff. I want to do, whenever the restrictions are lifted, my plan for that is to do what I call a ghost tour. I actually want to tour like haunted theaters, haunted amphitheaters, haunted whatever, and do like a VIP ghost tour investigation with me afterwards. So I'll perform, do my thing, and then, they have like a VIP experience where my fans can come along with me and check out haunted places after I perform in them. So that's kind of one idea I'm working on right now. Like I just got in contact with that booker in Florida, so it looks like I'm gonna be doing some national touring with comedy once the restrictions are lifted. So it's really turning my life into, what I want, which is all these things that I love to do. So as long as I could do this for a living, I'll be happy. That's all I want.
What's in the pipeline? Like what's in the recent pipeline? Once COVID is over and you get back to fully to work. Any planned films that you're getting set to start, or is it music and stand up right now?
It definitely is music and stand-up right now, because those are the things I could work on the most during this quarantine. But I booked a few films before the quarantine, so those got pushed back. So whenever those come back, I got a couple of movies I'm going to be in that we'll be shooting whenever, obviously we're able to do that. So I'm waiting on all those. So I have a good chunk of films and different projects I'm going to be filming once we're able to. And then, this paranormal album is really the main focus of my music right now and what I want to do with the future with that. And stand-up comedy is definitely coming back in a big way. Once I get out to Florida and start working with those people, I definitely think that's going to go pretty far once this thing is lifted. So
I'm in. I'll tell you, I'm interested in the paranormal ghost tour. You come to Philly, you let me know.
Of course.
I'll come I'll come check out the show and then we'll ghost hunt. I'll take you to a couple spots.
Perfect. I love it.
All right, well, guys, this is the part of the show. The end of it's pretty much the end of the show here.
Yeah.
We're gonna start off with definitely making sure that you guys know where you can find Jean-Pierre and all of his avenues and ventures. Obviously go see the film Ford versus Ferrari. Check him out. It's on Blu-ray and DVD now, so you can go pick it up or download it on, I guess, Verizon or whatever, like the rent on the on demands, which I haven't gotten to yet. I will. I promise. I will. You call me. You call me in a week, and I'll tell you the movie. I'll tell you the movie plot for plot. I will have seen it. But the big thing is I did like we had the technical difficulty for a little bit here.
Yeah.
Please double give me where people can find like your album or your scheduling for your stand up or performances. Where they can contact you.
Yeah, of course. The best place is www.mcpierre.com. That's the letter M, the letter C, Pierre. That has all my info. It has links to all of my profiles and all my information, so you can find out everything on there. It's mainly for my music, so you'll find my music, prominently displayed, but it has my paranormal stuff, it has my stand-up comedy, it has everything I need, and I have my email, so you can contact me as well. So that's the best place to go for all the info.
Excellent. And John, I'm thrilled to have had you on. I know when you and I talked on the phone, I may have seemed a little standoffish because I'm like, rapper, but because first thought is the fact that like, oh, you hear of a modern day rapper, you think of modern day rap, and then,
Yeah.
so I'm glad that I was guilty of judging a book by its cover, because you have been an awesome person to talk to. As a matter of fact, you know what? I'm not stopping the show yet. There's one further thing I've got to connect
Cool.
with. I've got to talk about, and it's something that I think there's a message that needs to be said here. And that message is that you did have, and unfortunately, a checkered past with unfortunate abuse, and I think it's really important that we address not necessarily what you went through, but how you were able to overcome it to do the things that you do, especially for people that are out there dealing with with abuses, whether it be physical, sexual, mental, verbal, whether it's parents or a spouse or siblings, or even getting bullied in school.
Mm-hmm.
That with being a person who has gone through this yourself, and finding the avenues through comedy, through music, through performance, what else, other pieces of advice would you give to people that are dealing with this type of situation?
This is a very, very difficult subject. So I'm 35 years old, and the end of last year is when I came to terms with that I was abused. So I spent 35 years thinking it was normal to be treated a certain way, to look at myself pretty low, and yeah, it's difficult because even somebody who studied psychology and parapsychology, like, I couldn't see my own kind of box I put myself in and the abuse put me in. So it's a difficult thing. I say the best thing you can do is, if you don't feel comfortable with something, don't accept it. And that's really the simplest way to say it. We get comfortable in things we don't like because they're comfortable, because we're used to it. And if you get too comfortable, it's probably time to move on, because comfort doesn't breed a lot of good things. When you're scared, when you're nervous, when I quit my job, okay, and I did that before I even came to terms with the abuse, it became so much, I had to quit my job. 2 days later, I got a call for a movie. I can't tell you cosmically how that happened, but it's weird when people talk about the universe and asking and doing things that impact your future and taking certain steps. When you take risks and face fears, weird things happen in your life. And I don't know how to describe it. It's not, even though I'm a spiritual man and I investigate the unknown, it's still an unknown for me. But I've seen it happen time and time again, even after. When you take risks, when you commit to things you want to do, it's weird the doors that open. Like 2 years ago, I couldn't have seen myself where I'm at right now at all. completely honest. I was a failure. My abuser made me feel like I was worthless. I could never achieve anything. Now I've achieved incredible things. And even before that, I just couldn't see it as incredible. So when you're comfortable, but you don't like where you're at, move to a different place. I think that's the simplest way I can put it, because it's not easy. It took me 35 years to realize it. And it took someone else. My brother's girlfriend is the one who was so blunt about the abuse that we went through. We had no choice but to face it. And it was like a kick to the gut. I had to accept a lot of horrible things. And I was like, okay, but I'm so much stronger and better now. And I know how to cut off bad people and keep the good ones. And it's not bad to cut off people. Don't feel ashamed. See, we were abusing our family, but family was the best thing ever. It was great. You never turn your back on family. When I finally left and I don't have guilt about it anymore, I'm free to do whatever I want. They had so much guilt placed on us by how we treated them or how we felt about them. So you got to face a lot of fears to get places in life. And if you're not facing fear pretty much every day, you're probably not going to get far, because that's what it takes. Even when you're not good at something, if you don't keep doing it, you're never going to get good at it. You're going to say, oh, I suck, and leave. But if you keep getting kicked and you keep getting pushed down and you stand back up, that will get you through, to be honest. Like there's no simple way to talk about it, because I know how hard it was for me to face it. So, but comfort is your enemy. That's all I can say. Comfort is your enemy. No matter how comfortable you are, you're probably not growing if you're comfortable.
That's just to add on it. I would imagine also, if you're going through those situations, you're never alone. Find somebody to talk to, whether it be like your brother's girlfriend, or
yes,
whether it's a psychiatrist or psychologist, or even one of these 800 numbers. Hell, email Realm of the Mist Entertainment. We said this during the suicide thing when we've talked about suicide after Chris Cornell's death.
Yeah.
If you're having those thoughts and you don't think like you can connect to anybody else, and you think you connect to us, email us. We'll talk to you.
And let me add to that point, because that's profound, actually. So my abuser taught me you can't trust anybody but family. So I was very closed off, especially about expressing myself. The moment I faced my abuse and started talking about it, the outpouring of not only support, but people who had been through similar things that I was around, that changed my whole perspective. Where you really are not alone. I really thought I was alone. I felt that way. But man, I tell you, once I opened up about it, totally different story. You're not alone. There's actually I would say too many damn people who have been through horrible things. So there's a huge support network out there for us. Yeah, don't take for granted, because I refused a lot of people's help when I was younger, because I didn't know what else to do. And my family made me feel like a burden, so I didn't want to be a burden on other people. So I turned down people's help, because my wife was the first one who actually I accepted support, and I would like stay at her place and stuff when things would get really bad. So find that person that supports you and you can trust to get out or help from that situation. Definitely, I second that.
So definitely on that. And guys, again, I want to thank my guest, Jean-Pierre. Thank you very much. This has been an awesome conversation. I feel like I've learned some things today.
That's good, man. Thank you for having me. That was great. I enjoyed being on your show and talking with you as well.
Awesome. And for you guys listening, if you guys enjoyed this in any capacity, hit that thumbs up button, like, share, comment, subscribe. Check out all the other great podcasts of Realm of the Mist Entertainment and our sister channel, Sounds Dicey Gaming, for your tabletop role-playing needs. And if you prefer your podcast in audio-only format, don't worry, we got you covered. Check out Realm of the Mist Entertainment on Anchor.fm, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, or wherever quality podcasts can be heard. Again, thank you so much. This has been a great time. I will definitely have you back on, especially when you're doing that ghost tour. We're going to want to talk and see how you're doing. And if I remember correctly, we also offered you a spot to do an after hours show, correct?
Yes,
Our comedy show.
talk about that.
I'm gonna sit down with the group today and see if we can schedule up a day to do that. So guys, keep an eye out for that. Jean-Pierre is going to be joining us on After Hours. But until then, guys, I will catch you on the next Breaking the Fourth Wall. Have a good night.